It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. This is ZiFM Sport on a Wednesday, wacky Wednesday. A Wednesday where Liverpool fans are still celebrating the title triumph after 30 long years of heartache. And today we celebrate Liverpool fans like Yokai Gutsi of Toyota Zimbabwe Memory, Mazorera of Celebration Church, Nigel Chanakira, another big Liverpool fan, of course, Mark Mate. Those fans are all in celebration, but in celebration, there's always a few tears as well, and we commiserate with the family of Daniel Dembenuzani of Mbare, who tragically passed away. He was buried yesterday. A big Liverpool fan, and all members of the Kadoma Liverpool fan group are saying fare thee well, champion, no doubt led by Max Karombo of Delta Beverages. So to the entire Liverpool family, yes indeed, we are champions. But we are ZiFM Sport. Mike Madoda, Chris Gray, Sean Tafirenyika, and Alois Bunjira. My name, Barry Manandi. What can you look forward to on today's edition? The Wacky Wednesday edition. Well, on the home front, Zimbabwe Cricket is set to embark on a drive to lure back some of the country's top players that left for greener pastures. In international sports news, with coronavirus cases on the rise in the United States and some teams recently closing their facilities due to positive cases, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver remains, quote, pretty confident about the NBA's plan to safely resume play, but admits that a spread in the NBA community could bring the league to a halt again.
And around the world in 60, we start in England, where Joe Root will miss England's first test against West Indies in order to be at the birth of his second child. In Italy, Ferrari have revealed their 2020 car will not feature any updates compared to the one run at February testing for Formula One's return in the Austrian Grand Prix, with the team instead working on a significant change of direction in development. And we touched down in Germany, where tennis legend Boris Becker traded insults with Nick Kyrgios on social media following the Australian's criticism of Alexander Zverev after a video appeared to show the German dancing in a crowded club despite the coronavirus pandemic.
Don't miss out on our play of the day, Wacky Wednesday. So a wacky beat to look forward to. And then we'll kick off the beautiful game in La Liga, where Lionel Messi scored the 700th goal of his career with a Panenka in Barcelona's La Liga draw with Atletico Madrid last night. In Serie A, Lazio kept the title race alive and kicking after coming from behind again to win 2-1 at struggling Torino. In the Premier League, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has warned Manchester United are full of confidence and quality after fueling their top four charge with a resounding victory at Brighton. And in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich have agreed a fee of £54.8 million with Manchester City for Leroy Sané, with the German set to sign a 5-year deal at the club.
Today is Wacky Wednesday, and as Mike said, our music selection slightly on the wacky side, albeit that our power play of the day is going to be an absolute banger. But first, it's our power play, of course. This is from Ra Swish. It's called Woo Forever.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Our social media pipes are available to you. They are at Mike Madoda, at Sean Tafirenyika, at Chris Midzi, at Alois Bunjira. I am at Barry Manandi. But the big one that you should follow and interact with us in and out of the show is at ZiFM Sport. Don't forget, later on we'll be talking about the NBA. Does it stay? Does it go? The studio panel will be telling us their thoughts around basketball in America. But first, local, and we're talking cricket. where Zimbabwe Cricket is set to embark on a drive to lure back some of the country's top players that left for greener pastures. Zimbabwe has produced a number of top players, some of whom have gone on to play county cricket in England or even playing for other countries. This has affected the local game, with the national cricket mother body, Zimbabwe Cricket, indicating that it is taking a deliberate approach to ensure those that left are brought back. There's evidence that this can be done after the return of former captain Brendan Taylor and, of course, Kyle Jarvis, with Zimbabwe Cricket said to be in talks with Northamptonshire-based promising bowler Blessing Muzarabani. Now, the news coming out of Director of Coaching Hamilton Masakadza, Mike, is that they want to get the structures right. So they're under no illusion that the structures aren't quite right to keep the top talent. And the reason that the top talent is leaving is because of money, of course, but there's also the element and aspect of our structures. We understand the club league will be coming back, and that's a positive step. So I think they've got the right sort of noises. They're making the right sort of sounds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Making the right sort of sounds, but there's still a lot of work to be done and a long way to go at Zimbabwe Cricket. For someone to pursue a career in cricket, I think it's important that they play cricket, that they be able to play cricket at different levels. So we need to have a vibrant club cricket scene. We need to see the old Georgians, old Hararians, the Harare sports clubs, Kadoma sports clubs. We need to have those back playing cricket on a regular basis, because that's a level of cricket that we need to see revived in the country. We need to, of course, take a look at the franchise or the provincial level in Zimbabwe and see what works best for us. You go back to Zimbabwe's heady days, Barry, we only had 3 first-class teams, and that meant that the first-class cricket scene in Zimbabwe was very competitive, and it was very difficult to break through into that level. So what it meant is that there was an increase in competition from those cricketers who were leaving school, for example, and those who are sort of like at university going age, to be able to turn out for Mashonaland, Matabeleland, and I think there was sort of like a president's sort of like select sort of like side that used to be in a development side that used to be in operation those days. Those were the 3 sides. So it was very difficult for you to be one of the sort of like elite 50 cricketers in the country. What we have now, Barry, is that we've got a lot of first-class cricketers, but the competition isn't that great. So it means that we are producing half-baked cricketers that are then available for selection for the chevrons. So I think Hamilton Masakadza making the right sort of sounds that we need to sort of like get our structures and domestic cricket back to the level that it used to be, or even better than what it used to be, in order for Zimbabwe cricket to be attractive. And even when you are now pitching it to those of our cricketers that are playing abroad, are playing in England, in Australia, etc., you are at least selling something that they find attractive in order for them to come back home and play cricket.
Attractive and competitive, Chris, because if we trust and believe what the Hamilton Masakadza, who is of course the Director of Coaching at ZC, is saying. He's talking about the National Club League being revived. Now, that's not where he's going to input or slot in those players he's trying to lure back. It obviously means, as Mike has explained, that there's going to be a higher level, which is the first class level, and that's where you slot in those players, and they are then entering into a far more competitive structure, and a structure that's likely, because it's now thinner at the top, likely to remunerate them commensurate to what they would get out there.
Definitely, and I think that's one of the biggest factors is for Zimbabwe. Generally, the way we look at sport in Zimbabwe is like it's a pastime, like the people who do it, just do it for the love of it. But the truth is, these are professionals. And if someone is waking up every morning to play a particular sport, they must be compensated accordingly. And that's one of the reasons why we've been losing our cricketers to other countries, is that aspect of the amount of personal progress they can make because of the financial compensation that they get. So being able to compensate them financially is one, and like Mike was mentioning, that level of competition is critical, I think, to any athlete to be able to go from one stage to the next. And if they're able to do that, they might be able to lure some of these cricketers back. But my only concern is that Zim cricket still operates in Zim, and how many cricketers at the moment would be keen on coming back into the environment as it stands.
that environment, of course, now having almost in a transition, because monetary authorities have allowed the use of the US dollar and all sorts. So perhaps there might be light at the end of the tunnel. The one thing that we can say, Alois, is that Zimbabwe Cricket has been a regular feature certainly on this show, and with due credit, because they have been active over the COVID-19 enforced lockdown and have been trying to get their things right. We spoke with Harare Sports Club, which of course they were sorting out and ultimately paid the outstanding rentals. And now we hear that they are actually setting up a plan to get the National Club League back in place. Zimbabwe Cricket seems to be doing some work.
Yes, but the fact that you said that they are a regular feature on our show, it means that we are reporting on something that is being done. Because others are sleeping, because we don't talk about them, because we don't see what they're doing. So that's why we're not talking about them, So they know themselves. They are not doing anything. The only thing that we hear about them is when it's electioneering. So it's a sport that is actually in dire straits, and it's actually in need of. But I'm glad that Cricket Zimbabwe is doing a lot. I can't just say something. I actually say they're doing a lot, because we have seen what is happening. It started with the appointment of Hamilton Masakata himself, and the good noise, the correct noises that he is making. I actually think that was a masterstroke for me, for them to actually appoint him in that position, because he has gone through the mill. He has been around cricket. He knows exactly what needs to be done. I think he needs to be supported. They need to sit down. What ideas that they've got, they need to support him, especially financially, because some of these things they need finances they need to be funded to actually take off. But the beauty of it, like Mark and Chris said, the competitiveness is key. When you need the development. When these kids are developed, they need a platform where they now compete competitively. Sometimes in Zimbabwe we lost it because we get too sentimental. We want everyone wants to play cricket. Let everyone play. No. The talented ones must be kept in one bunch and play at a competitive level. Exactly. So that's what we actually need. We need to create that funnel that goes up and thins at the top, where right at the top, there's such competition that it's world-class. World-class, yes. When you talk of world-class, we're like, we are Zimbabwe, we can't be world-class. We can be world-class if we do our things right.
We certainly can, and world-class opposition is what we were meant to have in that tour to Australia. Unfortunately, that has been called off, and Zimbabwe Cricket has said that they are disappointed that circumstances beyond their control forced the postponement of the Chevron's eagerly awaited tour of Australia next month. The country's cricket authorities and the Australian counterparts announced yesterday that they had agreed to postpone the one-day international series scheduled between August the 9th and the 15th.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe Cricket Captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport. Z.
Your local sports news roundup starts with rugby, where the Zimbabwe Rugby Union says it is working around the clock to ensure they comply with World Rugby guidelines for the eventual resumption of the sport after receiving a huge financial boost. While it might be too early to talk about the resumption of the sport, which has been classified as high risk, the Zimbabwe Rugby Union got a major boost after Rugby Africa released 5,000 euros through the COVID-19 Relief Fund. ZRU Chief Executive Officer Sifiso Made says they're looking at environmental and social sustainability issues to pave way for a smooth resumption of the game. In swimming news, Zimbabwe Aquatic Union President Mary Kloppers says they face financial limitations to fully ensure they follow all the guidelines by the government related to COVID-19 prevention. These include testing of all their members. She's quoted as saying, "Unfortunately, we do not have funds to permit such testing. Currently, we're working on competition guidelines. However, we do not expect to start competing anytime soon. Our requirements for officials only is more than 30 people at any one time, and until restrictions on numbers are lifted, we cannot consider holding competitions." Motorsport news to wrap it up. Motorsport Zimbabwe says it is ready to get back to competitive action once the government approves proposals related to safety measures after unexpected break from competitive racing as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Motorsport Zimbabwe says they're eager to return to competitive action after being given the green light by the government. Motorsport Zimbabwe spokesperson Temba Mazumbakupa says they are ready to roll.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station. My station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
Don't forget, we have the beautiful game still to come in the second half of the show. Lionel Messi, goal number 700. Barcelona, though, struggling to get a result versus Atletico Madrid. That is our lead story. But before we get there, let's give you an update coming out of stateside basketball this time. And with the coronavirus cases on the rise in the US and some teams recently closing their facilities due to positive cases, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver remains pretty confident about the NBA's plan to safely resume play, but admits that a spread in the NBA community could bring the league to a halt again. During an appearance on Time 100 Talk, Silver was asked if there's any chance the NBA doesn't go to Orlando, Florida, as planned due to the surge in coronavirus cases, or if it is full steam ahead to resume play at the end of July.
I'm pretty confident, largely because, as I said, we're playing on a campus that is confined in that the only way to gain access to that campus is to be part of our protocol where there is regular testing. And if someone were to leave our campus, again, they would need to test and quarantine in order to return to play. So at least in terms of the model, we're protected from the rate of cases in the community, in the broader community. I'll say, though, of course, when we designed this plan, we were not seeing the kind of increases in cases, frankly, not just in Florida and Texas, but at least as of the last few days, the majority of states in the United States are seeing increases in COVID cases. So it's not as if, especially looking out into the future, there's any safe way to predict or pick a market where we'll be confident that the cases will be sufficiently down. So our model was designed for this. Our model was designed to protect us and our players from the cases in the outside community. Maybe at the time we designed it, we didn't think it would be as necessary as it is now, but at least we're preparing for it.
Z.
Well, when Adam Silver, the commissioner, was asked what constitutes a significant spread that would shut down the NBA for a second time this season due to the coronavirus, Silver said he isn't sure and that the league will continue to work with a panel of scientists, doctors, and experts. And it looks like, Chris, that they are going to keep their ears to the ground and make decisions as more and more data and information comes in on a day-to-day basis. They're not going to be making any knee-jerk decisions.
Definitely, and I think that's absolutely critical to getting the league back and to actually completing it, to see it to completion, which is what I think they're trying to do at the moment because of just the sheer impact of not completing the season and what that would do for players, for teams, and for the league as a whole. It's great that they're working with scientists, doctors, and experts, but I think people also need to remember that the way that they've designed the kind of environment that the players will be living in, it's going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to actually possibly catch the virus because of all the precautions that they've put in place. The only worrying thing is the increasing number of cases in Florida at the moment. I think they're sitting on over 150,000 cases. And that's the only thing I think that's probably spiking some of the worry. But in terms of the actual bioenvironment that they're creating, it will make it entirely possible for them to actually start the season again and see it to completion.
Barry, we've already seen a couple of the franchises, the Denver Nuggets. I think they had to close their practice facility on Saturday after two members of their team contracted the coronavirus. The Brooklyn Nets as well, they had it under lockdown, and I think they reopened their practice facility on Tuesday, which is just yesterday after being closed for several days. So it is something that is of concern in the NBA, something that is of concern to the teams and the players themselves. So it's something that just can't be wished away. And what is your take? What sort of like, what's the level that would see the red flags come out for you?
Well, right now, I think because we're in this weird place where teams are still not in that bubble yet. They haven't gone to Orlando. They haven't gone to Florida, where it's now a safe or biosecure environment. It's a bit of a strange one, because you look at it. The Texas state is now the epicenter, and you've got huge cases. The whole of America reporting nearly 40,000 new cases a day. So that presents a unique struggle for the NBA, on the basis that these are individuals that are training at their training facility, but going home to their homes, going to the supermarket, etc., etc. So they haven't created that bubble yet. Anything that happens in those various locations, you can't control, number one. And then number two, the minute that it happens, it spreads like a wildfire. So the answer by Silver in terms of what would cancel the season or what would make them go back into their shell, and he said he didn't know, is absolutely correct, because we don't know what might cause this thing to be regressed. But for me right now, the whole of America needs to have a coordinated approach towards the coronavirus pandemic. And I think that there is decisions that need to be made a little bit higher, possibly at White House level, that will affect whether the NBA is able to take off or not.
Alois, is this the new normal? Because, a lot of people, in those that would say, hey, sport has come back too soon, or sport shouldn't come back at all, are often talking about, listen, there must be zero infections, there must be a zero infection rate or a zero possibility of infections. But is this the new normal that we must accept? The fact that, listen, it's the NBA, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cases of COVID-19 are acceptable, because this is the world that we now live in. I mean, we've had, of course, the testing in the English Premier League, for example, where we have seen 1 or 2 cases every time they've tested. 1 or 2 individuals have tested positive to COVID-19. Is this the new normal? And is this the attitude that the NBA should take, that to say, you know what, guys, we're never going to be able to keep this thing out entirely. But what we need to focus on is getting the show back on the road with an acceptable amount of infections.
Yeah, Mike, I've said it before. I wanna ask what was the rationale? What was the idea behind it? The wisdom behind getting sport back, if we knew that the numbers are still spiking? So I would have thought that they were now in a position to say, you know what, we're going to play, and those that get infected, we get them treated. I thought that's where we were at that time, because we went back to sport when the numbers were still going up. They were not going down. They were still going up. So I would have thought that they had something in place that we will say, you know what, we are playing, we are only locking down so that we can put our things in place, in order, so that we know how to treat the patients, how to treat those that are infected. So if we're going to wait for zero coronavirus infections, I think we're going to have a long wait in our hands, in probably 5 years, because it's here with us. It's here. So I would have thought that it's all about putting measures to deal with coronavirus, while of course there are a little bit of change in our lifestyle, yes, but life has to go on. But if we're gonna go back into hiding again, I start thinking now, those theories like the second wave.
We won't get back to playing. I mean, if you go back into hiding, can I just throw some figures out? Let me just throw some figures out for you guys. This will interest you, okay? So this is disease deaths per day worldwide, okay? Barry, I know you're a numbers man, and Chris, you love your data, so this should interest you. Tuberculosis, 3,014. Hepatitis B, 2,430 deaths per day worldwide. Pneumonia, 2,216 deaths per day worldwide. HIV/AIDS, 2,110 deaths per day worldwide. Okay, cholera, 392. I've just skipped over some. Meningitis, 329. Measles, 247. Rabies, 162. Yellow fever, 82. You want to find out what the average for coronavirus is?
Yeah.
What is it?
56.
Per day.
And that's what's brought the world of sport to a standstill. That's what's brought the global economy to a standstill. So
I don't understand, Mike.
Yeah, that's what I don't get as well, guys, because have we not made too much of this coronavirus pandemic and allowed it to disrupt our lives way too much?
I actually think... Okay, go on, Chris.
I think because of the fact that it was new, there's no, vaccine for it. There's no known actual cure for it, and we're finding ways to manage it. I think that was the cause for the concern, what brought economies to a halt, and sport as well, was we didn't know how to handle it. I think the impact now is we know a few things that work. The vaccines are going on trials, and countries have found certain ways to get back to normalcy. Now we can. But I think that initial halting of everything was because our health system simply wouldn't have survived if we had continued our lives.
But Chris,
it's the strike rate, if it was cricket, seems fairly poor, to be honest.
Yeah, the strike rate is low, but then it's multi-layered. I think, yes, we can look at the rate of mortality as one aspect and one metric. But we've also got to look then at the rate of infection. And the rate of infection is very high for this disease. The rate of hospitalization, again, hold the phone. The rate of hospitalization is very high, which is a key component. The fact that people need to be hospitalized, and it puts hospital systems under strain, is the reason why the world has basically shut down. If 1 million people try to check into Parinyatwa, it's never going to work, because we still got people with BP, hepatitis, TB, who still need to go in there, and it causes the entire health system to grind to a halt. That's the reason that this coronavirus has had the impact that it has.
Oh, that's the final say from the World Health Organization represented in the studio, Barry Benangla. Well, let's continue this conversation. Very interesting one on social media. Follow and interact with @ZFM Sport. Coming up, we take you around the world in 60 with Chris, and then we give you today's play of the day, Wacky Wednesday.
Hi, my name is Luke Bahamute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the World in 60 is proudly brought to you by DSTV. We take off in England, where Joe Root will miss England's first test against the West Indies in order to be at the birth of his second child. The test captain will leave the training camp at the Ages Bowl on Wednesday afternoon in order to be with his wife Carrie, who is expecting to give birth later this week. Due to the corona protocols, Root will have to self-isolate for 7 days once he leaves hospital with his family. It will mean he will miss England's 3-day intra-squad warm-up match and the first test against the West Indies commencing next Wednesday. We head over to Italy, where Ferrari have revealed their 2020 car will not feature any updates compared to the one run at February testing for Formula One's return to the Austrian Grand Prix, with the team instead working on a significant change of direction in development. Confirming their first round of updates will instead appear at the season's third round in Hungary in 2 weeks' time. Ferrari chief Mattia Binotto said their disappointing form in winter testing had led to a rethink of the SF1000. We touched down in Germany, where Nick Kyrgios and Boris Becker have traded insults on social media following the Australians' criticism of Alexander Zverev after a video appeared to show the German dancing in a crowded club despite the coronavirus pandemic. The video was posted on Instagram by German designer Philippe Plein and later deleted. There was no indication of when the video was taken. Kyrgios on Monday called Zverev, the current men's world number 7, selfish, prompting a rebuke from commentator and former 6-time Grand Slam champion Becker. The tweet read, "Don't like no rats. Anybody telling all fellow sportsmen or women is no friend of mine. Look at yourself in the mirror and think you're better than us." And he obviously tagged Nick Kyrgios on that particular tweet.
Hi, I'm Clemens Matau, chicken in midfielder. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The league that makes football oh so beautiful. where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day. Where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
The goal the world wants it!
No better place to kick off the beautiful game than in Spain, where Lionel Messi scored the 700th goal of his career with a Panenka in Barcelona's La Liga draw with Atletico Madrid last night. The Spanish Giants' all-time top scorer hit the landmark goal for club and country by gently chipping the ball into the net as Jan Oblak dived the wrong way. The goal had put Barcelona 2-1 up, but Atletico hit back to draw 2-2. Barca remains second, 1 point behind Real Madrid, who now have a game in hand. I think it's fair to say, Barry, that the only positive for Barcelona last night is the fact that Lionel Messi hit that landmark goal, 700 goals, and what a way to do it, against one of the goalkeepers that's described as the best in the world. You pull out the Panenka for a penalty, and a wonderful way to get to 700, but Messi would not have been happy about the result.
He won't have been, and we know that he's a typical club man. He's a team man, and it's a team objectives ahead of his own. He'll celebrate the 700 goal mark, but certainly he was disappointed with the draw, which feels like a loss, and its implications on the title race, because now Real Madrid have the realistic opportunity of going 4 points clear, and you got to think to yourself that might be a bridge too far, where they would be expected to drop points in at least 2 games before the end of the season for them not to win the title. So Barcelona certainly will be kicking themselves, and certainly Lionel Messi won't be happy with the outcome of yesterday's performance.
Alois, if there's one thing I think that really illustrates Barcelona's drop in quality, especially as an attacking force, is the fact that if there was a team that always knew how and found a way of beating Atletico Madrid comfortably, especially at the Nou Camp, it was Barcelona. Their record versus Diego Simeone has been absolutely outstanding. But the 2 results this season, both 2-2 draws, meaning that Barcelona has failed to beat Atletico Madrid. I think they just show you that there is something wrong at Barcelona, that this team is no longer operating at the level it has in seasons gone by.
Exactly, Mike. When you look at Barcelona right now, especially this time around where they are not consistent at all, but you can't help but feel an air of there's something that is not right at Barcelona. Even when you're watching it, like you're saying, they are not operating as a mean machine that we used to know. Barcelona would create 10 chances, they would miss 7, but they'll score 3, but you will spend the whole time counting chances created by Barcelona. But this time around, you don't really see them creating as much chances as they used to be. You don't see them playing with efficiency that we are used to seeing. And now they're dropping points at a very critical time as well of the Spanish league. Psychologically, it's going to drain some of the players as well, and it's going to affect them. So going forward, I actually see more problems coming into the Barcelona camp, probably dropping points to other smaller teams as well, because this can only be good news for Real Madrid. Once they win their game in hand, they'll be comfortable. I'm sure that they'll pull through the finishing line.
Chris, the coach Kike Setien coming out and saying that it's difficult to play Antoine Griezmann without destabilizing the team. A comment like that for a player that you invested 120 million euros in is a very concerning statement. And the very fact that Griezmann had to wait until the 90th minute to enter the fray in a game that Barcelona needed to win shows you that perhaps his future is in doubt at the Camp Nou, and perhaps even the future of the coach himself.
Definitely. It's an incredibly strong statement to make about a player, especially to be made in public. I think he's had a really rough time at Barcelona, and it might be time for him to move on. I think it's time for the coach to move on as well. But that combination hasn't worked at all. In terms of Griezmann himself, I think this is going to be a situation that might actually just completely demotivate him. I think the coach himself saying this about the player does nothing for the player's state of mind and what his performance could actually become. And substituting him in the 90th minute, I think is basically just to give him a run on. But in terms of actually believing in him as a player, I think Setien's given up on Griezmann.
given up on Griezmann, Barry, and now I'm just going to throw some figures at you. Barcelona since 2014, Barry, or since they brought in the likes of Luis Suarez, have spent over £900 million on players. But they've also managed to recoup over 600 million in terms of sales. So their net spend is lying at about 350 million pounds. And you've got to say that they've got very little return for such a huge capital outlay in terms of trophies in the cabinet, because the last meaningful success for Barcelona, if we don't include the league, was when they won the treble in 2015.
Yeah, it was. And in truth, when you've spent close to £1 billion, you're looking, and that's $1 billion. You're looking at a much richer return, and also for a club like Barcelona, the status of Barcelona, where there is the La Masia factor, where there's supposed to be that regular production that's supposed to be giving you players, and we've seen Ansu Fati lately, we've seen Ricky Puig. Who sounds a bit like a Sicilian.
But Barry, isn't that where the problem is? That Barcelona have gone away from that model where they always used to bring in 2 or 3 players from their own academy to be mainstays in the team, and went on a spending spree where they were bringing in players like Dembele, like Coutinho, like Malcolm, players that have struggled to integrate into the Barcelona way of playing. Antoine Griezmann is the latest, 120 million, like we just discussed with Chris just now, brought in from Atletico Madrid. And we see that the man clearly does not fit into the Barcelona style. And so isn't that the problem? Because you mentioned those 2 youngsters, Ansu Fati and Ricky Puig. Those players, whenever they are wearing the blue and red of Barcelona, they look like proper players because they seem to understand how to play the Barca way.
That's the point I was getting to, whereby I wanted to say that with La Masia there, you can't have a Barcelona spending $1 billion on players, on bringing in players, because we know that model to have worked. And if you look at the Barcelona history, whenever Barcelona has not been firing at the level that it ought to, that is post Johan Cruyff and now post Pep Guardiola, it's as a result of the abandonment of what we know Barcelona to be. Those 2 coaches I mentioned worked on making sure that the academy was strong, then the first team then was strong. Right now, Barcelona has abandoned that process and continues to try and buy success, which is not their model and never has been. It needs to return ground up back to the Barcelona way of doing things.
Okay, La Liga action returns tonight, but before I give you the fixtures, other results from last night, Real Mallorca, they are struggling at the foot of the table, trying to survive in La Liga. Well, they recorded a thumping 5-1 victory over Celta Vigo, and then Sevilla were emphatic on the road 3-0 versus Leganes. Your action in La Liga tonight, Alaves takes on Granada. Valencia will welcome the Athletic Club of Bilbao to La Mestalla. Real Betis versus Villarreal. Real Betis in all sorts of trouble. They've been struggling since the return of football. Real Valladolid versus Levante. And then 3 matches that are on tomorrow evening. Eibar versus Osasuna. Real Sociedad versus Espanyol. And Real Madrid, champions would be taking on Getafe.
In Italy, Cristiano Ronaldo scored a long-range effort as Juventus sealed a 3-1 win at relegation-threatened Genoa, chasing a record-extending 9th straight Serie A title, Scudetto. The victory restored Juventus' 4-point lead over Lazio, who won 2-1 at Torino earlier last night. Since losing the Italian Cup final to Napoli in a penalty shootout, Juventus have won all 3 of their league games since the restart. And if you want form that takes you to a championship, you've got to be able to bounce back, Alois. And Juventus has been able to bounce back from that penalty shootout defeat to Napoli, which would have deflated them, because I think they would have thought to themselves, winning the Italian Cup would have been the first step towards getting silverware for this season. They've dusted themselves off and are looking good value.
Yeah, unfortunately disappointing for me, because I would have loved to see them slipping up, and last year also fighting hard and getting more points, but actually it has happened the opposite way. And I actually think now Mike is actually vindicated. There was a lot of stick that was thrown at at Juventus after they lost the cup final to Lazio, and people were talking a lot about Juve and their form, but they bounced back. I think now we can actually see that it was not justified. The criticism was not justified, and they've bounced back, 3 wins on the trot, and they are on their way to the championship. Like I said, at this critical moment, you always see that the chasing pack in the Italian league, they always disappoint. They start dropping points, and at that very same time, Juve will be pulling away, with the league, and that's exactly what we are seeing right now. Juve, they're actually looking stronger, and when Cristiano Ronaldo starts scoring, they all, he is like a talisman. Wherever he has played, he scores those important goals, he scores those incredible goals, and I see he is actually going to push Juventus to the finishing line, and they are going to break the record. 9 draws in a row is going to happen in Italy.
9 Scudetti in a row, and it's a phenomenal record. But you've got to say to yourself, we were talking earlier about Barcelona and their investment and it not reaping the returns that they had hoped for. Last night, that goal by Cristiano Ronaldo, Chucks would have paid back a few pennies to their Agnelli family, wouldn't it, Mike Madota?
Yeah, it would have. And very impressive goal. Picked up the ball, just beyond the halfway line, surged towards goal, and then unleashed a rocket from all of about 22 yards to beat the keeper. All systems out. Very good goal. And for me, Barry, though, the untold story for Juventus is Paulo Dybala. Paulo Dybala is their main man at the moment. He is the form man. He's the guy who's scoring the important goals. Juventus were dominating last night, but they couldn't quite pick the lock until Dybala opened. He picked the lock and opened the door for them, and then it opened the floodgates, as it were. So Paulo Dybala, for me, the form that he's showing, and playing next to Ronaldo, and like Alois pointed out, Ronaldo tends to score his goals in bursts. So if Paulo Dybala can keep it up, hopefully they can take that sort of form into Europe as well. Where Juventus, I think, that's the primary purpose for which they brought Cristiano Ronaldo, to try and challenge in Europe. But they've got to offer some sort of meaningful challenge in Europe. And I think if those two are firing in Europe, it means that Juventus will fancy their chances also of making an impression in the Champions League.
And Chris, very quickly, Lazio themselves have only got themselves to blame, and in truth they are the diametric opposite of Juventus, because in the run-in you need consistency. They haven't been able to hit consistency because they've dropped points at critical phases, and now are 4 points adrift.
Definitely, and I think that's what happens season in, season out with Serie A, and especially now when they were incredibly close. I think this is the closest that they've been in a while, and this is a time that we expected them to kick on and to actually mount a significant challenge, and they did for a little bit, but now that 4-point gap is just going to keep extending and extending, because for this final run, what you need is consistency, and they haven't been able to produce the kind of consistency that it takes to compete with an outfit like Juventus, and Juventus might just be running away with it again.
Yeah, 9 Scudetti in a row is well in sight for Juventus. There are Serie A fixtures on tonight. Inter host Brescia, Bologna versus Cagliari. Spal will entertain AC Milan. Hellas Verona take on Parma, while Lecce entertain Sampdoria. It's Fiorentina versus Sassuolo. Tomorrow, Thursday, Atalanta will take on Napoli in a tasty encounter, and Roma will take on Udinese.
We dive into England now, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has warned Manchester United are full of confidence and quality after fueling their top four charge with a resounding victory at Brighton. United extended their unbeaten run to 15 games in all competition with an imperious 3-0 win at the Amex Stadium that lifted them up to 5th and to within 2 points of 4th placed Chelsea. Now, Alois, a lot of things coming together for Manchester United, but you've got to say that in Mason Greenwood, they found a significant player.
Yeah, we have talked about it over and over again. I think with Mike and Perry in the car park, we remember, guys, we spoke about it, that he needs game time, that boy. We don't know why they are still giving him a little bit of time. He needs to start, because he is sure a very, very good player. He gives a lot to Manchester United. He scores goals, all kinds of goals. He can bend it, he can take a shot, he can tap it in. And I actually think he actually inspires the other players on the field because of his dazzling. When one player dazzles, everybody else wants to join in. So I'm happy that he is now getting a little bit more time. And Manchester United going forward as well, I think that they might just have found a good formula going forward. What I'm not happy with Manchester United is the defense, the goalkeeper. I don't know, the goalkeeper, he can perform for 90 minutes, then he can do a holier for the last 10, So I'm not comfortable with David De Gea, to be honest. I haven't been comfortable with him for some time. But going forward, I think Manchester United have found a very good formula, and they're scoring goals, which is very important, and I'm enjoying it. It's just hope that we catch up. I'm sorry to use we, guys. You do it. There's Liverpool. I'm Manchester United. We are going for the top 4.
No. Totally agree with you, Alois. I think United are looking good from an attacking sense right now. I think, and also, Rashford has been out of it since the return of football. But what United have got are other players who are chipping in with goals, and that's what you need. And even if you use, for example, Liverpool or Man City as an example, when Mane doesn't score, Salah scores. When those two don't come to the party, Roberto Firmino comes in with a goal. So that's what you need for you to sustain a challenge. And I think United is getting to that place where they're not dependent on Rashford. They're not dependent on Martial. They're not dependent on Bruno Fernandes. There are other players who are able to chip in when the chips are down.
Speaking of making that challenge for top 4, Chelsea, sitting above United, make the trip across to the capital, to London Stadium, for a Premier League derby against struggling West Ham. Frank Lampard's men have won all 3 of their matches since the resumption of the season, with their most recent success coming in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup against Leicester at the weekend. The Hammers, though, have lost both of their fixtures without scoring a goal this month, and David Moyes' men are currently only out of the relegation zone on goal difference. Your fixtures: Bournemouth versus Newcastle, Everton will be taking on Leicester City, Arsenal versus Norwich, and West Ham, that big one, versus Chelsea. Tomorrow, Sheffield United take on Tottenham, and Manchester City are up against Liverpool.
Let's wrap it up with a quick update out of Germany, where Bayern Munich have agreed with Manchester City for Leroy Sané, with the German set to sign a 5-year deal at the club. The Bundesliga champions will pay an initial fee of £44.7 million with a series of performance and trophy-related add-ons. These could lead to an additional £10 million for trophies won, such as Bundesliga and Champions League titles, as well as personal awards for the player himself. Leroy Sané headed back to Germany and headed to the German champions. All right, we got to go. We'll catch you tomorrow for a shortened edition. It's Thursday, Throwback Thursday. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manandi, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.